Hello. Hello. How are we doing today? Yes. I hope we're good. I'm so sorry for starting a little bit later than scheduled. I had some hitch but everything is resolved right now. So, how was yesterday? Did we understand all we talked about yesterday? Okay. So, my name is Ruth Hepzibah and this is Fresh Start series. So we are on day 3 of our Fresh Start series, and we'll be embarking on the journey of healing and growth. Okay, like we said from the very first start, this series is one thing that is going to be very beneficial to each and every one of us. You, me, everyone. Okay? Because we're going to look at everything that has kept us in one spot, that has kept us in a state that we are not able to move. So today we're not going to be doing much of the practicals. We'll just be talking basically about grief, about this journey, understanding grief, okay, navigating grief. So that's basically what we're looking at today. And I tell you, it is one thing that is going to help each of us. Grief is one particular subject that is always on the mind. It is one subject that people don't talk about. But is it necessary? Yes. Do we need to talk about it? Yes. Right? So we need to talk about it all the time. We need to talk about it because it is important. A lot of people are grieving. So today I just want to welcome each and every one of you to the 3 of our Fresh Start series, and we'll be embarking on this journey together. And we are going to be looking at this topic that is often neglected and misunderstood. And you know what that topic is? Grief. Okay. There's something we always say at Echoes of Life, and that is there is a killer, and that killer is what? Grief. There is a killer in town. There is a killer doing all sorts to people. There is a killer claiming lives daily. And that killer is what? Grief. Okay. So grief is a universal experience, and yet it is so often overlooked by everyone, the government, the people, families, even we as individuals. We overlook this concept called grief. We oversimplify it. We just underestimate it in our society. And I tell you, a lot of issues happening today in the society, when you look deeply into it, what is the underlying factor that is making these people do whatever they are doing, or that is making the economy go down, or that is making things not work out, that is making you not to be focused in what you need to do, is because there is something under, and that thing is what? Grief. Like I always say, when I am talking here, I am talking because I have been there. I talk from experience. I talk from what I know. I don't say what I don't know. I don't teach what I don't know. I don't teach what I have not experienced. No, I only teach what I have experienced. I only teach what I know. I will not come here and tell you things I know nothing about. No. I have experienced it. I have been in it. I have drowned in it. I tell you, and I am out of it. Amen. So, right now, we are looking at grief as a concept, as an entity that is claiming lives, that is taking lives daily, that is making people not to achieve what they need to achieve. Are you in that category? Are you part of those people that we are talking about? Are you part of the people we are talking about? Are you part of the people we are saying are experiencing this loss? So, like I said from the very first start, this is day three, and we are looking at grief, which is most underestimated, which is most misunderstood, which is most neglected by all. And this is grief, the journey through grief and the journey of healing and growth is what we'll be looking at today. So, today we'll be looking at the complexities of grief. We'll be looking at the confusion surrounding its stages, and we'll also be looking at strategies with which we can overcome it. So, when do you start your journey of recovery after experiencing a loss? At what point do you start it? At what point do you say, yes, it is time for me to be healed? It is time for me to move on. It is time for me to move forward. Okay, so first and foremost, we're going to be looking at a neglected and misunderstood process, exploring grief and recovery. So, what do we understand by grief? Like I said, today we'll not be doing so much of the practicals, but we will be looking at grief because grief is a very large topic and we'll be compressing everything into just 2 days, and you know how difficult that is going to be. So, um, we are looking at grief now as an entity, and grief is usually thought of as a response to a loss of a loved one through death, a loss of anything that is so dear to you. Okay. Most times people don't acknowledge grief as when it comes to other things, like I just mentioned, like divorce, like death of your pet, um, death of your loved one, your child, your parent, your lover, your friend, loss of a job, loss of money, loss of a friend. And do you know that bullying too can be tied to grief? So a lot of things just get entangled in this entity called grief, and we don't understand that it is killing. It is a killer, and it's killing gradually, is killing so much, and that killer is what? Grief. One out of five persons actually grieve every day. Do you know that? So, when we experience a loss, when we experience any form of loss, then it must be accompanied by the process to allow our feelings of despair, right? And that feeling of vulnerability, that feeling of disorientation, and other symptoms, right, that comes along with it. So the result of this misunderstanding that comes within you as an individual is what brings all forms of unrecognized and incomplete grief to people. And before you know it, what happens? This situation becomes very complicated. So sometimes we are abused, right? When we're growing up, and our family, our parents don't even understand that such things are happening to us as individuals, as children. And what happens? That child grieves all his life, and it affects the child even all the way. But when people begin to think of any situation as grief, is usually when someone dies, right? Or when something major has actually happened. But I tell people grief comes with a lot of things, right? Grief happens, and when it happens, we may not even recognize it, and it becomes incomplete because we just move to the next stage of our lives. And the aftermath of it, PTSDs, all sorts, lack of concentration, anxiety, depression that comes with it, is not something we want to factor right now. So, when our emotions are buried up and go under, they go beneath the surface, what happens? We may be unaware of how the losses affect us as individuals. We may be unaware of how the losses affect our lives and our relationships. And some of these losses, other than the physical death that we've been talking about, the physical death of a loved one that may evoke grief, some other kind of losses that we may experience is divorce or romantic breakup, right? Is loss or impairment of any of our body function, right? It can be loss of our jobs, illnesses, mental or physical illnesses of yourself personally or of a family member. Okay. Major moves like relocation, loss of trust because your spouse or your partner is having an affair or is unfaithful to you, or maybe adultery, maybe alcohol, substance abuse by your parents. So now you lost trust in them, breach of trust, not keeping to their promises, loss of safety or control of your body, then physical or sexual assault, uh, other significant death losses like death of a friend, of a colleague, of then like miscarriages, you know, loss of your pet or something so precious to you. You know, these things, when they happen, sometimes we may not even know that we're grieving. Yes, when my husband was diagnosed of cancer, I didn't know I was grieving. I didn't know I was grieving. No. So then he used to say, can you slow down? You're grieving. And I'm like, no, you are grieving. I think you need to slow down. You need to take it easy because you're going to be healed of this cancer. And all the time, I never knew I was grieving, but I knew I always broke down when he's not there, when I'm alone and I'm overwhelmed with everything. I just break down and nobody knows, nobody to talk to about it, nobody, because I couldn't even share that I was actually grieving, that I was breaking down because I didn't want my children or my husband to see those tears. I didn't want them to see me down. I continued to be the strong woman that I was, even with my heart being broken with the news that he was going to die. So now I was grieving, right? But did the grief start there? No. The grief, okay, what about when I had to relocate from my country to a foreign country and I wasn't prepared for it, you know, and I just stumbled into it without all the preparations that I needed. And what happened thereafter? I was grieving so bad, especially when you don't even know where your stuff are, right? So a lot of issues can make you grieve. Okay, what about when you're growing up? Little things that used to happen in school. Maybe you didn't have friends, as much friends as your other colleagues or classmates had, and you just felt, why am I left out? And you can be grieving, and you won't even know that you're grieving, but it's eating deep. And those are the incomplete grief that we're talking about. And they are not recognized, but they are incomplete. They are grief. We just keep moving and keep moving. And one day, the major one happens, and we just see ourselves, boom, grief. And sometimes we cannot take it. What happens? We gone. Other stuff happens, right? So that's why we're talking about it. So I want you to put it in the chat. I want you to talk to me about it. Share with your friends where you are right now. What are some losses in your life that you have experienced that evoked grief? And how did it impact you? You can write it down. Like we said, we should always come with our pen and our paper, like I have here. So always come with it so you can always write something down. Have a book. For this 6 weeks, get a jotter or a composition notebook and get something down. Write it down. What are some of these losses in your life that you've experienced that evoke grief, and how did it impact you? Okay? Okay, so the next thing we'll be looking at are the types of grief. And I'm not really going to dwell so much on that, but I just want us to understand that we have different types. But I'll just be looking at two. Like my kids will say, if anybody ask me anything about my mom, I'll always remember complicated grief and non-complicated grief, right? So, what is complicated grief? Just like the name implies, grief that is complicated. So, all those grief that you refuse to let out, refuse to let go, like we talked about yesterday, letting go of resentment. So, all those grief that you refuse to let go, that you refuse to let out, what's it going to do? You think it's just going to rest somewhere? No, it's going to result to complicated grief. Okay? And what about the other one? Non-complicated grief. Yes, that is healthy grief. It is healthy to grieve. It is healthy to grieve, but it is bad when it becomes complicated. So one of the most common conceptions about grief is the idea of the stages. We have so many stages, right? But we'll stick to 5. So it is so much popularized that everyone keeps talking about the stages of grief. So this model that we are used to has become so influential, and we all recognize it as the model for grief. But one thing we need to know is that Grief does not follow any linear what process. And if I may shock you, grief does not go. When it comes to you, it becomes a part of you. Because the experience, the thing, what happens, it stays with you. Are you going to forget your darling husband? Are you going to forget your darling child? Or that situation that brought you down? Most times you cannot really forget them. But what do we do? It just needs to be managed, right? So we have the regular 5 stages of grief, which is the denial, the anger, Joe Zaza, the anger, right? And the denial stage, the anger stage, the bargaining stage, the depression stage, the acceptance stage, right? And people expect that you're going to start with the denial, then you move to the anger, then you move to the bargaining, then you move to the depression, and you move to the acceptance, right? But I tell you, it doesn't work like that in all humans. It doesn't work like that all the time. Sometimes people start with this anger. Sometimes people start with bargaining. Sometimes people start with denial, right? Sometimes people start with depression. What stage are you starting with? And that is why, for we always encourage people because to start with the acceptance. Why? Because everything we are saying, we still boil down to acceptance. And I tell you, today you say, oh, yes, I've accepted. The next minute, you break down again, right? You break down again. You become angry. Maybe you see certain situations and you're like, oh my God, if only I. And you've forgotten that yesterday, I actually thought I accepted, right? I thought I was in denial. Oh my God, no, it's not supposed to ever happen like this. No, 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 it cannot be. You cannot. For those that pray, no, we take it to God in prayer. No, it can. Just a lot happens. Then those that sometimes it makes you so angry that everything around you will suffer for it. Okay, now why do we always say start with the acceptance? Because when you start with the acceptance, we talked about letting go yesterday. It's going to help you let go. So, but is like I always say, everybody is different. But when you start, why we always say start with acceptance is because these stages they keep coming back and forth. So just accept the situation and move on. Because there are stages I can remember, maybe at some point, maybe we'll go to Walmart and I remember that, oh my God, I used to come to this point, my husband. And you're like, oh, yes, I used to come to this point, and you break down again. Then sometimes you see another situation that you're like, oh, no, 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 he's not gone. He's not gone. No. God can still bring him back. Yes, yes. What's happening? Denial. But does that mean that you've not accepted? No. Does that mean that you shouldn't move on? No. Is it going to hinder your progress moving on? No. Sometimes you just remember the person, maybe you're looking at memories, good memories, and you just break down and you start crying. Is it going to affect anything? No. Right? Did it stop your grieving process at any point? It depends on you. It depends on you. Okay? It depends on how you want to move on. Sorry, they said my audio is not working. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. So it depends on what you want to do. So that's why we say there is so much confusion and limitation applying these stages universally. So there are other models which we'll talk about, not in class. We're definitely going to talk about them in subsequent videos after now, especially when we start looking at the grief journey. Okay, so we're definitely going to explore more on other models and how it can affect you and how it can work with you, and so you know which one is working best for you. So now I want you to take your pen again and write, right? So you're going to write for us again and say, do you believe that grief allows a set of stages? Like you have to follow that stage from denial, just like that, to the end. Do you believe that it, grief has to follow those stages? So, because some people will be in denial, some people remain in anger for 20 years, they never get healed, they never move forward. Some people remain in bargaining for 30 years, they never move on. You see someone, maybe he is 45 and tell you, oh, I still grieve my mom so badly, and that was why I couldn't finish my school, and it affected my whole life, and that's what has kept me in this stage that I am right now. And I've been to jail 100, maybe like 5 times. And are you wondering why? Because they still bargaining, believing that God can still do something. They're still in denial, they're still in anger, they're still in depression. They have not been able to accept the situation. Things are bound to happen. People come, people go. Things come, things go. Situations happen. It can be merry today and it can be sad tomorrow. So when you begin to have this mindset, you'll be able to accept immediately when issues happen. When things happen to you, you begin to accept it immediately. You begin to say, yes, this has happened, yes, but it's not the end of the road. It's not taking me away from who I am, right? So now, do you think it is more fluid or more of an individualized process? So these stages we are looking at, do we think we should do it like everybody need to follow the process? Or do you think that it happens to you as an individual depending on who you are? So the next thing we'll be looking at is, when is it time to begin to recover? When is it time for you to tell yourself, I'm done? I'm done grieving. So we'll be looking at this. What stage are you in right now? How long have you been in that situation? So grief and recovery are intertwined. So there is no set time, there is no set timeline for it. No. So I cannot come to you and say this is the right time for you to say I am done, because everybody is different. But one thing you must know is that there are signs and indications that will indicators that will tell you when to start focusing on healing and when you need to start rebuilding after experiencing the loss. Because sometimes we just keep dwelling on the loss and we forget about we forget about us, we forget about, like, for instance, the person. What did the person really want us as an individual to achieve, and what height did you want to get to? We forget to develop ourselves. We forget that we have kids, or forget that we have friends. We forget that we have other people that matter in our lives. We allow these situations to just weigh us down for nothing. Okay, so we are going to be exploring now recognizing when grief transitions into a more manageable stage. How do you know that? How do you know that now it is manageable? How? You know, it is difficult to actually say, okay, this is the right time. But you know yourself better. Maybe at some point in your life, you used to be a very happy person and all that, and things happened. And you broke down, and now you cannot rise up. And all of a sudden, you're beginning to see that I think I'm beginning to have interest in the things I never had interest in before. And you decide, you know that, okay, I think it's time for me to let go. So then you have to also, while you're doing this, identify those signs of readiness in you, those signs of recovery. And another thing, when you're grieving, that you need to know, especially that can help you take a stand whether you need to focus on recovery, is your self care. Do you take care of yourself? Have you looked at the mirror? You know, sometimes I just go back to 2021 to see me. I go back to 2022 to see me. Whoa, was this truly me? I go back to some of those years that I feel I was grieving, like when I relocated and all the stuff, coupled with having a baby and all the everything just happening together at the same time with my husband sick, just so much happening at the same time. And I look at those pictures and I'm like, really? And I thought that was funky. So when you look at those things, you begin to see progress and you begin to say, okay, I think I'm healing. I think I need to focus more on recovery now, right? So you need to take good care of yourself in this process. You need to go back, have a good haircut, go back, have your hair made again, go back, go to the stores, get those makeups done again, right? Get those dresses again, get those clothes again, get into those partying again, go back to your circle again, go back to the church again or to the mosque or wherever you belong again, go back to God again, go back to God again. Because most times, one of the things that is usually affected is our relationship with God, because we always feel like, oh, He has forsaken me. Where was God when all these happened? Yes, where was He? I tell you, you can be you again, right? So today, like I said, we're not going to be doing a lot with uh, on on the practical side. We'll do that tomorrow. So we'll be looking at the next thing. Um, okay, maybe just ask you a few questions and prompts so that can help you in your recovery journey. So, what are some of the signs and indication thoughts that might suggest that it is time to begin the journey of recovery after experiencing a loss? So, in your journey, what are those signs you're seeing? What are those indicators you are seeing that might suggest that yes, it is time for me to dust these clothes of grief and squeeze it so much and dump it into the trash, like we say in trash it, whatever is weighing you down that is negative, every negative energy in you, you pick it up and you put it in the trash. Okay? So, what are those signs you are experiencing right now that has suggested that yes, it is time for me to move on? It is time for me to start a journey of recovery. It is not a 1 day journey. I tell you, it is a journey, a very long journey. And that long journey starts with a step. So, are you divorced? Are you passing through grief because of your divorce, because of the things you've lost, because of separation, because of all the things we've mentioned before? Right? Because of the sickness, because of the impairment, loss or impairment of any of your body function, or is it because of your mental health or your physical sickness that has kept you in one place, or abuse, substance abuse? What is that thing that has kept you and you feel it is time? I tell you, now is the time. Okay? So I have a personal story and I'm going to share with you. In 2021, I lost my best friend. I lost my husband, Emmanuel, and I lost him to the battle of cancer, a rare cancer. And it was so depressing for him because he doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, and he was diagnosed with kidney cancer that metastasized into the stomach lining and all sorts. And he kept on wondering, why me? So within that period, we were already grieving without knowing. I was grieving so bad and I didn't know I was grieving. And when I look at my kids, sometimes I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God, you mean if I'm going to be a widow? You mean he's going to leave us like this and the journey of 12 years is going to just end like this? And I'm like, no. And you know how bad it can be when you go to the hospital and they tell you that, oh, he has 2 weeks to live, he has 1 day to live. And you're like, are you God? You know? And it was really so devastating. And finally, after about 5 months, it passed. On that fateful morning, he just left like that without a sign. And I'm like, who are you leaving these 4 boys to? Who's gonna do this work? And I was so mad and I was in denial. And I told myself, no, it cannot happen. And I got in and into all sorts. And I said, no, you have to come back. God, you must bring him back and all the stuff. And I went into near death experience. I died, I resurrected, and I knew that, oh, that was the first time I understood that I needed to accept the reality because I died. I couldn't enter my body and I'm screaming I want to enter my body and I just couldn't enter my body anymore. And I'm like, I want to enter my body. And what was killing me? Grief, because I refused to accept it. And I died in grief. And somehow I just woke up and I told myself, no, I'm not going to die in this journey. I must be alive for these children. I must be alive for myself. And that was when the journey started. And when I woke up and like, how do you feel? Okay, he passed, and you realize that he, the mother died same day from grief also, the shock of losing your own son, you know, so much just happened to me, and I just couldn't comprehend that all these things were happening all at the same time. And this was the only person in the whole world that I talk to, that I share my dreams with, that I do everything with. So who am I going to be sharing those dreams with? Who is going to be that counselor? Who is going to be the advisor? Who is going to be everything to me, the helper, everything? And it was so devastating. And after all this, at some point, I felt, okay, I've accepted, right? And the funeral came and was gone. And when we were done with everything, I realized that, so it is real. He's right here. And that was when the grief journey started. And I'm like, really? So he's gone. And I just couldn't understand why he had to leave, why he couldn't defeat cancer, why he couldn't defeat death, why he couldn't say no. And I was so angry. I was angry with the situation. I was angry with him. I was angry with everybody all around me. And I just didn't know how to manage all the things. And I tell you, I got away from all relationships I had with people. I, even in my ministry, I just couldn't function. And at some point, I was angry with God that I look at my Bible sometimes. I say, when I want to open it, I hear that voice that tells me, are you still reading this Bible? And I just take the Bible and I throw it down. And I can remember the day I went to his room, I packed his Bible, his prayer books, because I just couldn't imagine that I was going to be reading this. I put them, took them to the trash on the bulk day, took his altars, everything, and I put them in the trash for it to just go. So I don't have memory of that God that never healed him. So I just couldn't study the word of God anymore. I just don't couldn't do nothing much anymore. I was struggling with my faith. I was struggling with everything that I had. Even when I am talking to people, I am struggling. I'm just begging God, can you just help me? It was so bad. And at some point in my life, I almost wanted to quit the church because the whole system was not making sense to me. I wanted to quit everything. I wanted to quit whatever it was that had to do with this world. I just wanted to be me and do, but it was just so bad. And I tell you, it was at that point that I got to this idea that I keep sharing, which is acceptance. And I realized I was reading a book and I saw forgiveness. And I'm like, oh, really? It so resonated in my heart. And I'm like, yes, forgiveness. You need to forgive the situation. Really? You need to forgive this person, and you need to forgive yourself. You need to forgive everything. And I realized that, yes, I needed to forgive the situation, and I needed to accept this situation because everything is going down. I lost everything I had because of grief. I dropped out of school. I lost so much. I would have maybe been homeless if God had not intervened. With four boys, where do I go? And I can remember there was a day I just told myself, I'm going to put these people in my car and we just keep driving wherever we get, we settle there. And it just crazy ideas coming into your mind, and you cannot comprehend why, because you are grieving. And the next thing I told myself was that I need this nonsense needs to stop. I need to accept it. I need to accept it because grief has come, it has stolen, it has come to stay, but we will not be consumed by it. And I stood up and I went back to school and I finished my school and I did all those things I couldn't do before. And today I am here talking to you, and I've been able to also help a lot of people that were in my shoes. So many women, so many children, a lot of people have been able to help because we have become change agents that people, when they see you, they know that yes, you can do it, so I can do it. So I'm talking to you right now. I don't know what stage you are in your grief journey, but I tell you, if I could do it, if I didn't die in grief, if I didn't quit in grief, if I didn't allow it to rope me in and entangle me and get stuck in it, then you too can rise up today. I don't know how long it has taken you, but I tell you, you need to stand up today, rise up from wherever you are, and move. And that takes us to strategies for dealing with this grief and loss that we're talking about. And I'm going to just be telling you the strategies you can use. Some people cry, some people schedule some time to be alone and focus on their feelings, and some people include activities, a lot of activities that can help them. Some people schedule begin to learn other skills that they didn't know anything about. Some people begin to reach out to friends and other grief support group like Echoes of Life and Grief Share. There are just a lot of them that you can reach out to. Echoes of Life is there. Grisha, the Trashy Tribe. You have just a lot that you can talk to and begin to interact, and you have a family of people who are we're in your shoes and they are fine navigating through grief. Okay, then if you are still struggling with grief, you can reach out to us on Echo of Life at www.echoesoflife.org with your questions, and we will definitely get back to you. You can call us, you can send DMs, and we will definitely get back to you. Then you can join the community, the Trashy Tribe community, for those still struggling with their mental health, and it's going to help you. And also, we have other strategies that can work with you. If you know you are really struggling, and you feel you want to end it, please call 911. Okay? Call 911. It is very important. And also, you can get professional help from people like me. That's what we do. We help you with your grief journey, we help you with your mental health journey, and give you skills that will be able to work for you. And like I always say, within the 6 weeks, whatever you are dealing with and you seek help, we can give you a plan for free because it's my birthday gift to everyone. And I'll give you plans that have been working for others and it's going to work for you. Okay, so now I know that it has been a very difficult journey for each and every one of us, and for you, and for me, for our families. I'm so sorry, whatever we've been through, no one deserves it. You don't deserve it, but you don't need to be stuck in it. So I will encourage you to give us some of your strategies. You can write it down in the chat, you can send it to us in our DMs. And what strategies have helped you cope with grief? What strategies have helped you with your feelings and of grief and your feelings of loss in the past? You can put it down in the chat. You can call, you can send messages, and we'll definitely get them. And I want to thank everyone that have been sending in their messages and doing all the homework. And we are seeing them. We love you, and I've responded to a good number of them. And I should continue with all those that need responses. And it's a continuous journey, and we are in this together. So as we conclude today's section, I just want to remind you that grief is a complex and individualized process, and there is a killer in town, and that killer is called grief. So try to take good care of yourself and begin your journey of recovery. So tomorrow we'll continue with this grief talk. We'll be looking at stuck. Are you stuck? We'll be looking at why. Why did it happen? And we'll be looking at ways to move on. Should I move on or should I remain? Okay, so those are some of the things we're going to be looking at tomorrow and the strategies that you can follow that can help you. So don't forget to share, don't forget to like our pages on our social media platforms. Don't forget to share, don't forget to join us, don't forget to subscribe for more content. And if you love what we're doing, just keep giving us those thumbs up, and we love it. So encourage each and every one of you to please make sure you engage in those activities. Your homework for today, okay, is to check yourself inwardly. Am I ready for recovery? Thank you, and God bless you.